Without being too much of a disappointment, because we are due to start at 1:15, this song will probably replay at least halfway, just while I wait a moment, if that's okay. That's right, Robert Power, this is Storm. That's right, you got that correct. Someone just said, who was that? Sorry, Dewich just said, I didn't know Vinny played piano. Yeah, I'm actually playing this with my left hand whilst messaging people with my right. I'm amazing. I wish I could play piano. I'll bust out the old harmonica at the same time in just a moment. The old harmonica. I'll get the guitar going on the other side. Another few minutes, ladies and gents, and we should begin our cancerous conversation. Ricky Mills just said, I bet the girls like you. Do you know who likes me for some reason? The gays. They can't get enough of me. I'm now waiting, the same as you, ladies and gents. I'm going to share this out. If you could do the same just before we start chatting. Street is indisposed at the moment. Alex, being nocturnal, has fallen asleep. He's about as useful as a barber shop on the way to the guillotine. But there you go. But with any luck, after our deep, meaningful messages, maybe we'll be joined by some interesting characters. Who knows? Who knows? So give this a share immediately. You have your orders, ladies and gents. The Great White Vin has spoken. make this a reality. Manifest this into reality, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Here we go, chill out. Okay, I suppose we better start, really. I always feel rude just abruptly stopping Chopin. I don't like just stopping wonderful music. We all have to do it, but it's something that bothers me, you know, like an OCD tick. Just when there's something wonderful playing and you've got to just stop it outlandishly. So I'm going to try and fade it out. Can I do that? Let's have a look. DJ skills via YouTube. Check it out. Chopin, Nocturne, Op 9 number 2. Fading out. Right, okay, so you now have my undivided attention. Can you imagine how lucky you are? Okay, what we're going to start with, interestingly, Jesus, someone give me a 10 already. Christ, I don't know if I deserve that. Right, so what I'm going to start with is some interesting death threats that I have received today. Yes, these are commonplace, but this one's particularly interesting. I think you'll find this entertaining. I'm going to give you a moment just to listen to this voice note. Now, bear in mind, this character used to come into Telegram groups talking about how he'd like to do horrific things to so-called Nazi children. And we found who he was. Yes, James. As you know, you're always welcome, but I know you said earlier you was indisposed. Can I hear myself? I can hear myself somewhere. That's disgusting. Right, so here we go. Enjoy this. Oh, hang on, I'll turn my phone right down. I'm hardly a BBC studio, as it were. My usual death threats, but this time they're spicier and they're very Jewish orientated for some reason. So this character whose face I put out a long time ago. Where's this mic? He's very angry with me. You're about to hear that. But he openly admits when he talks about what he wanted to do to so-called Nazi. Oh. Sorry. Children. And yes, he is a paedophile, basically, from what you hear him say. I got his face out a while ago and he disappeared. Much like Enoch yesterday saying he wants me, raped by people, he wants me to be burnt alive, etc. So have a little listen to this. This is the composure of some of the people we're dealing with. I'm in my country, you fucking piece of shit. That's what I am. I'm in Romania. So why don't you wait for the fucking quarantine to be over? Take yourself a nice ticket, London, Bucharest, and I'm gonna pick you up, and I'm gonna fuck you up, you fucking piece of shit. Motherfucker! You call me a pedophile, you fucking piece of shit, for what? For saying fuck Nazi kids like you? You're a fucking kid, bitch! Fuck you! Fuck your family! And fuck your fucking mother! I'll fucking kill you, you fucking piece of shit! Come in Romania! You are fucking dead! Motherfucker! It would appear that I'm just naturally good at what I do. False, fake. Next one. Threats continue from a shrimp whose face I put out, who wanted to rape children and made many jokes about this. Let's see his next voice message to me, shall we? Listen to me, you fucking face. Here's another threat for you. I'm gonna fucking kill you. If you ever come in Eastern Europe, any country, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Czech Republic, any country. By the way, I've seen this guy pictured with Tommy Robinson. I'm gonna find out Vinny Sullivan is in Eastern Europe. You're a fucking dead man. I'll fucking kill you, motherfucker. You understand me? I will fucking kill you. I fucking kill you. You can take this fucking recording and take it to the British police and says, hey, Romanian men have told me. I tell you because you're a fucking Nazi piece of shit. Because you call people that... By the way, I reckon we could probably crowdfund his flight if you did want to see me. You don't know pedophiles. When you are a fucking piece of shit, you don't know nothing about me, motherfucker. I'm not a pedophile, but I'm gonna fucking kill you. So that will make me probably a fucking killer. So he's trying to convince me he's not a pedophile, whilst trying to convince me he's going to end my life. But not a fucking pedophile. You understand me? You fucking piece of shit, I will fucking kill you for what you do, motherfucker. You understand me? I never met Tommy Robinson, okay? I never been to UK, motherfucker, and I don't intend to come. But I'm gonna fucking terminate you if you come to Eastern Europe.
biggest anybody. You're a fucking dead man. I'll fucking kill you.
Right, so I think that's that chapter over with, isn't it? Bear in mind, yesterday, because I said I put out a poll which said, let me make sure I've not got straight in the back chat before I carry on. Nope. I reckon he's gone to sleep or something. Because I said I put out a poll, should it be considered treasonous to support Mossad? Right. I've got to get the poll for you so you can understand how this poll went. Where is it? Let me go get it. So I put this poll out, and as a result, so there's been 738 votes in this poll. And the question was, should it be considered treasonous to openly support Mossad? 80% said yes out of 738. Now, take that 20% in the 700 people and ask yourself, what the hell and why did they vote that way? But all the same, it shows the majority of the British opinion is to support another secret service over your own is detrimental to the country or treasonous. So as a result, apparently I should be raped at sword point and burnt alive because I put that poll out. So are we starting to understand the general tone of what happens if you talk about certain? Let me remind you, ladies and gents, I have obviously had death threats similar, but it is not Islam chasing many people down. It really isn't. Okay. Oh, this character here in the chat, James Thug, Sullivan and basically Ellie are racist lunatics. This character here is part of an Antifa group on the southeast coast, and they try and help the immigrant incoming, as it were. So what they do is there's a older woman whose name is Ellie. She spends every day worrying about the coast. She runs SE Coastal Defence. I've been there several times and heard her plights. I went to confront a hotel, or at least question them over them housing refugees, paid for by the Home Office, right? And there's these Antifa that harass this elderly woman who's being slandered. They've made videos about her when she's cried. And let me tell you, she has had a background worse than most victims. I can't go into details, but she knows pain more than anyone I've met. Trust me. And the way they victimize this elderly woman, when all these fully grown men along their entire coast do nothing, I wish to highlight to all of you this group. Now, they've made videos on myself and James Goddard, but we couldn't give a toss. But the continuous barragement of going out in little groups, handing out leaflets, etc., calling Ellie a racist, slandering this elderly woman who's not very well, and gets up to go to the coast and records how many times the helicopters go over, rings me in dire straits saying, I don't know what to do, the Coast Guard, blah, 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 and so on. And they have become infuriated by it. So I'll be putting information out on who these characters are roughly, and it will be up to the Chans and all of you to help us, because it's within the public and legal record for us to question them legally and ask them why they think it's okay to do what they're doing. Constant Part 2. Basically, he made a video on myself and James last week. It was pathetic. I believe the person is deeply troubled, but he's not alone. There's another woman, and they basically just make consistent claims against one of the few people in this country that actually records the immigrants coming in illegally. So, ladies and gents, we'll be drawing your attention to them. And like I said, it's not just a case of a few little online videos. They make it so Google search is unfortunate for her. They advocate overpopulating us deliberately. They joke about this. We're all racists, etc., etc. So he calls himself James Thug, but he's got multiple accounts. If you go onto his channel, in fact, wait there, I'll go and link one of his videos now. Bear with me. I have to remember where I've put it because I've got so much. That will be last week that I did that. So wait, bear with me 2 minutes, ladies and gents. Let me check one of my core chats. In fact, can one of my admins go and fetch it for me, please, so I don't waste the audience's time any more than I have to? Because obviously we're all into the problems with people like resisting hate, etc. Eye on anti-Semitism. But these characters, they don't know what they're dealing with. Obviously, most of us are used to Antifa from London, you know, Antifa that have big backing or connected to FLAF or stand up to racism. These characters think that they can bully an elderly woman. They have no idea what the anonymous switchboards can do. They have no idea what the Chans can do. So, ladies and gents, it is up to us to help our elderly and our patriots. And let me remind you, when someone is not talking about demographics, it doesn't matter. If they are at that coast every day, despite their physical declining health, and you've got individuals that are young and healthy going out of their way to slander her last few years on this earth, that's our job, ladies and gents. That's our job. Anyway, let's move on to the problems that we're facing now. We are in a horrific epidemic, and many of us have been driven to our feet because we're so concerned about the country and about people and seeing people victimized. I've repeated this again and again, and to the point of me boring myself, never mind you. So the question has to be asked. I feel very much affected when people that I care for or work with are attacked, harassed, bullied, or slandered. And I can only assume that it would be the same for anyone else that had teams that they'd worked with. We are getting characters like Donna Sexton, Miss Patriot. We're getting Enoch. We're getting these characters, but they're all defending one person. Now, the narrative has become so vicious, so nasty. People want us beheaded. They want people hurt. They want this, that, and the other. All I know is it usually takes me very little to come to the defense of people within my close vicinity. I cannot understand why Tommy Robinson is not doing more in aid of helping the people around him and discrediting our argument. I cannot any longer get my head around it, because the people that are arguing with other people, it's a pointless pissing match of nothingness, and all that will happen is everyone will forget about it. But the fact is, there is an open discussion that has to happen. Mark has offered this. Laura has offered this. If I have to, I can offer this. Legal public discourse for the public and legal record, because these pathetic arguments are wasting people's time. If you genuinely are highly patriotic, we can both groups go our separate ways right now and only worry about the projects coming up. You will work hard. You will do stuff, irrelevant of what other people are doing. But all I am seeing, and call me unfair, is people that are attacking a new organization that have no intention of their own projects, videos, field work, documents, articles. I am not seeing articles or anything of any substantial worth that will affect the left from these individuals. But the people they're attacking are running streams, are writing long-winded articles, are highly educated, self-educated, might I add. Let me remind you, ladies and gents, that when you have to go down certain rabbit holes, you are running against the grain. If you want to be a lefty, it's easy. You can go to any professor, he'll help you. Not only is it difficult to learn what you have to learn, but you have to do it in secret. You can't go to a professor and say, can I ask for help? Because they'll call you an extremist. You have to look for this information, which is, first of all, difficulty. Then when you find it, you have to revise it and cross-check it to make sure it's true. And the whole while, these academics and these people pretend that they have some sort of hierarchy over you. At this point, ladies and gents, if we're going to go our separate ways, fine. but practice what you preach. Because I have worked with people for a couple of years and they tend to follow the guidelines that we have all created. I'm getting death threats. Other people are getting death threats. Where is the man himself? I'm telling you now, if anyone in TRR does that, then there'll be apologies publicly. I'm not saying it's not happened. I'm not saying ridiculous arguments have not happened, because they really have. I've been really obtruse and offensive. But after watching this for the last, what? I'm not exaggerating. It's been about 9 months of this. It really has. People had groups calling me anti-Semitic closer to a year ago than now. Why? Why? What's it all about? This idea of freedom of speech, it's a folly for a start. Now, these individuals as well, that I've spoken to some of them individually and said, shall we talk about it? And they just say, bugger off. Deep down, they know their argument is flawed. And that's the issue. I'll highlight something else and predict the future. I predict a future that will not highlight Soros, that will not highlight ADL tactics or far left tactics. I predict that the continuation of time wasting efforts will happen. That's fine. But if you are genuinely unbothered by what we're saying, if you are genuinely disconcerted, there is no need for long-winded, ridiculous arguments. There's no need for people that no one knows, that there's no videos making fake feuds with people like James or Chris for the sole reason of TR just going unscathed and the argument going unscathed. Okay? So if the argument on the side of us is irrelevant, make us irrelevant. It's that easy. It's that easy. I doubt it very much, Tropical. I doubt it. And as I've said tens of times, I do not have any resentment for any of you. I have called some of you names. Like yesterday, I was calling someone a C word. Doesn't mean I mean it. But you've got to stop bullying each other. It's pointless. The entire ethos of the movement, as I remember it, was the media won't let us speak. The government won't let us speak. How can you live with yourself? How can you be honest? I'm being tame here, incredibly tame. You've heard a few debates. You've heard wonderful argumentation, and it's not good enough. You've heard people debunked critically, harshly, and it's not good enough. You've had offers coming out of our teeth for the last, not just 2 months, for 6 months. Nothing. If you was teaching your child to be moral, you'd tell them not to do the things you're doing. Fact. As I said before, if two children were stood outside and you saw one punch the other, and they both run inside, and one was lying, you'd say, now, I saw what you did. But why is it when it comes to you as a fully grown adult, you will hide the truth, twist the truth, and do everything in your power to lie? If you know you're lying, then maybe your nationalism is flawed. Maybe you are flawed. I do not want a single penny from any one of you, and I never will. Don't get it wrong. If I start a business, you're all free to come and buy the goods or whatever. But the point being, I've seen virtually, I've seen it. Not only have I seen what's going on, I see it in person where I see all these thousands of people out. all having bought merchandise and done this and done that. And then if you dare talk about who's actually funding these organizations, you are the devil. Ladies and gentlemen, let me have a moment's pause to check with Street. He's not in the back chat. Now, I'm not here to please people. I'm not here to make you happy, as you are not here to make me happy. I'm sure we'll both get over that. Okay? The fact of the matter is, what inherently bothers me doesn't seem to be the same thing that bothers other people. And the last 2 years, I have watched people deliberately go well out of their way to me. Fine. I'm not going to be, people think I'm a narcissist, but I'm far less narcissistic than people understand. People have gone out of their way because of their narcissism to stop me talking, stop me having my say, in case I was just as good or better than other people. Fine, whatever. I can deal with that. But the consistent attacks of individuals for no reason, when you're supposed to genuinely feel remorse for English and British and European and Western individuals, is contrary to what we want to give off. It's contrary to the nation's interest, basically. And at this point, if any discussions are going to be had, I'm sure no one's going to take my advice, because it seems at this point, especially with lockdown, everyone's adrenaline is driven by hatred in Telegram chats. But if we consider ourselves professional, then the leaders should have this out, or the so-called leaders, or the people that consider themselves smart enough or intellectual enough. I'm not saying I am, but if it's the case that no one else is going to do it, though you've got Ralph or Mark or Laura happily putting themselves forward, if it's the case that it'll stop all this people tearing chunks out of each other, I don't care if Australians and people around the world are all told on this, that, and the other by some fake fan base. Let them hate me. But as long as English people right here, right now, can get their answers, then I will put my name forward. Bring any academic you like, as long as some of the leaders are there. Because I can't see how organizations with a leader could handle seeing all these pointless attacks and horrific things happening to their own people. So I think it's time that TR did speak to at least one of us professionally. It's gone too far. And there's no point pretending that the other side isn't fully aware of all the threats and pointless arguments and time wasting that's going on. And the reason that I'm so incredibly confident in this is because if you look at people like James or Chris or any of the people that are supposed to be evil, they've got massive groups. They're making massive efforts. Yes, Jakes. 1 sec. I'll go to your inbox on Telegram. If that's okay. Jakes and Latte is going to join me. There you go, my man. Welcome to the stream. I better pay attention to StreamYard though. I do that thing where I just carry on talking and people sit in the back room for half hour. It just seems to me that the things that cut me and hurt me are not the same things that cut and hurt other people. You know? I don't understand how people like Voodoo or any of them have been allowed to circulate in some of the places they have. I don't understand how Resisting Hate have been allowed to circulate in some of the groups they have. I don't understand. Well, I do understand why it is that we have got so many people calling everyone anti-Semitic. That everything that is pro-English, pro-white, is what's being attacked.
Hello.
Jakes, hello, sir.
How's it going? Okay.
Spicy stream.
Spicy stream in the swing of things. That's what I like to hear. I don't like a stream unless it's spicy.
Yeah.
I'm sure the people who come in the live chat definitely love a good spicy stream.
I'm
JT
just
Smith
glad Alex isn't
101.
here.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Alex is not here. Well, I was kind of hoping he would be, actually. So, what's going down?
Well, I just think that at this point, you know, there's all these streamers out there, and people like Chris were told they're not important enough for a debate or a conversation. When Mark Collette goes live, he has like 100 to 1,500 people watching him at once. Is that not good enough? But most people don't get 1,500 views on their video. He's got it within the first 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if we're talking about audiences, here's what makes me laugh. There's this idea of, I heard someone saying to James yesterday, when you've got 1 million followers, when you've got this, when you've got that, I do apologize. You will not gain any access to that height on any of these platforms if you're talking about certain things. Fact. You will not get on Piers Morgan. You will not get on Sky News. That's a ridiculous notion to say.
No, that's not going to happen. We won't be. We'd have to shift the Overton window massively to get on mainstream. I think the only one possible who could go mainstream is Mark Collette or Laura Towler. I don't think the likes of I know Tommy Robinson's mainstream, and
I couldn't.
maybe. Oh no, not us. Not anybody like us. No matter how radical our views would be, it doesn't work that way. They want you to bang their drum or give them something. Like Tommy Robinson, it's seen as far right, which is quite incredible. And you know, we all know Tommy is not far right. He's just somebody a bit to the right, but his actual views are actually you know, for multiculturalism. He's quite a liberal.
He's a libertarian, or not a libertarian. He's liberal. He's liberal.
He's just a liberal who doesn't like Islam. That's it. And his movement, his civic nationalism, does not answer the big questions. It does not solve the big problems in society. It's a one track.
I don't expect
album.
Personally, other people who haven't got our opinions to say what we're saying. I haven't got that expectation, but what I do have the expectation of is for those that are coming out the woodwork and trying their hardest not to be attacked. I'm used to it. I know what's going on here. I've seen it happen to myself for a couple of years. Yeah. So all these people coming out the woodwork that have wonderful ideas, they're being attacked for no reason.
Well, yeah, so they want to continue with their liberal civic nationalism, which is, well, it's globalism. That's what it is. They, like, to me, I live in an ethno-nationalist country, in an ethno-nationalist part of the world. It's absolutely normal to think of your people, put your people first. The state is designed to protect the people. There are laws in place to protect the people, keep them sovereign, keep the land sovereign, which is totally normal. And to me, it's totally normal. Talking about nationalism is totally normal. If I go downtown here, I go in the expat community where the English lads, the Welsh lads, they're very ethno-nationalist. You know, just because we come over here, it's still our identity is still very, very important to us. Very important. And so is our country. Because our family live there, our loved ones live there. Of course, we want our country to succeed. And from afar, we're looking at it thinking, what is happening? What is happening? It's very worrying because really, you know, our country used to be this way. I can remember when it was, you know, very normal to be a nationalist. But it seems to be the normal now is an extreme view. And they don't want that. They want the globalist agenda. And nationalists are the absolute antithesis of globalism. You know,
Absolutely. I mean, someone just commented in the chat who is an Antifa member saying, "Why do me and the leader of Southeast Coastal Defence hate Iranians?" So already you're seeing a mentality there of someone who has a specific group and misunderstanding what we're trying to do, when in fact Iranians are perfectly nice people actually, and
yes,
deserve the same that we do. Actually, I
absolutely.
used to speak to one an awful lot who believed in the same similar views to us. Iran's actually being held back by globalism, so that shows how little you know, sir.
Yes, I've met many Iranians and great people, great sense of humor. And
Mhm.
this when the general was killed by the Americans not so long ago. I think it was
Mhm.
Soleimani. His name is,
Hillary.
and you had the likes of Anne-Marie Waters from For Britain saying, "Oh, we should be going to war and everything." Why?
Yeah.
Why? You know, why do we have to get into another war? Why would we get into another war? I mean, you've killed like, you know, somebody who has an amazing state, very high status. Of course, they're going to get pissed off, and if they've retaliated, they deserve to retaliate. You've attacked them in their country. You know, this is what we always talk about as nationalists. We want self-determination to choose for our people. You know, to make what's best for our people, to do what's best for our people. So we don't have any foreign interference. We can take control of our borders, immigration. We have laws to protect the sovereignty of the land, of businesses. And we don't have this idea of, oh, you know, that's capitalism, you know, these 50,000 people here now are going to lose their jobs. Oh, but the free markets will take care of it. Yeah, the free markets will take care of the corporation that moves this
Yeah.
50,000 businesses. That's what happens, but it doesn't take care of the 50,000 people. They're just absolutely disposed of.
Welcome
So,
the absolute state of Britain. Always welcome. Uh,
so it's kind of,
yeah, well, the thing is, as well, we're losing good relationships with other countries because we're forced to live among each other. So, also, Europeans feel this resentment from us that doesn't need to exist. So, during the time of the Brexit argument, the fact is that it's actually North Africa and the Middle East that have done this. If wasn't so heavy, having Europeans here would be not, you wouldn't notice it. There are stones throw over
no,
culture. It would be a pleasure to have our Polish shops and what have you. But the fact is, it's not a case of disliking them. The room that we have is non-existent, and our ethnic class of Englishness, not just whiteness, is now being depleted. So, what future plans will be is okay. Well, what they're doing is they're clamping down on immigration. Let's put more Europeans in, so that it tricks because then the culture will still erode in Great Britain because it's our
mm,
culture which is powerful to our intelligence. So whether it's um, Czechoslovakians or Somalians, it just depends on the speed that it'll happen. That's all. So Czechoslovakians might have more kids than us, but it will certainly be less than the average Somalian family.
well, I was in a stream with Libertas Met Politics, Horus, and St. Harrison the other day, talking about what they're doing. It's a dilution of the spirit. They're trying to break the English spirit. Now, the English spirit is very, very solid because England's given so much to the world, and wherever English people go in the world and they see modernity, they are part of that modernity. You know, even
Hmm.
down to a knife and a fork and a plate. Anything like that, there is very much a part of England almost everywhere you go. You know, not we, I'm Welsh, but Britain's exported many, many ideas, creation, invention, absolutely, literature, academia, everything. Like, you know, my wife is Thai. She went to University of Bath because that's where the necessary academia is. You have to go to England to get it, you know, such qualification or certification. I mean, that is absolutely evident. That's being exported all over the world. It created American culture, and I think what we're seeing is American culture is now has now made a big impact on British culture, and it's beginning to dilute it as well. Because when you look across the water at America and it becoming more and more multicultural, that's now influencing Europe, Great Britain. We're talking about Polish people coming into the countries. You know, it's not the same, as you say, as a smiling person. But from a small nation like myself, Wales, well, I don't want 10 million Polish people in my country. So anybody who likes to play the race card, that's absolutely nonsense, because, you know, we're talking about our ethnic roots. We're talking about our ethnic identity and not the dilution of our identity by any other. And that's fine. I mean, you know, and this is what we're trying to resolve. This is what we're trying to keep. This is what ethno-nationalism is. Ethno-nationalism is a country defined by its people, its heritage, its ancestry, its language, its common faith, its ethnic gene pool. And those values that we hear civic nationalists talk about so much arises from the ethnic group. I think it was somebody in America called, I think it's Stephen Miller or Stephen King. He says, you cannot build your country with other people's babies, because it is quite evident that the country will change, that the country will change forever because you're using a different ethnic group. You know, I can even say to my wife, who is like in the room with me, I don't want 1 million Thai people in my country, because it will change. It would change Wales forever. It'd be gone. It would be totally different, you know. Well, and I must admit, Wales is in serious trouble demographically. And so,
Well, I got a photo of Leicester yesterday, and it was basically the Labour voter base there was completely and utterly Asian at this point. When I say Asian, I mean you know, Arab, completely. And then you get this audacity of people like certain organisations saying, it's not us, it's not voting against you. No, but the communities don't get here by mistake. And if we just continue following Stalin, then it's going to get worse, because we've only got a few decades, not centuries, decades.
Yeah.
Right? So we can play celebrities, we can play panelists and fun games, or we can get to the crux of the problem as patriots. Otherwise, we might as well pack our bags now and all just go and watch Netflix, because that's what the movement as I
watch Netflix. Yeah, because, well, over the years, since you know, the Frankfurt School, which was you know, has given us critical theory and just deconstructed everything through postmodernism. I mean, this and the fall of the Iron Curtain, the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Iron Curtain, when, you know, communism's just being allowed, Marxism's being allowed to flood academia, and they're the people we got to move out, as well as the institutions. And I think, you know, we have a movement, and we're forcing it now to the right, forcing it, absolutely pushing it now as further to the right as we can, just to try and get some balance, just to try and get some sense of collectivization, collective identity, and say, okay, this is a collective identity of our ethnic group, and now we need to get rid of what has been deracinating us and shredding us down into atomized individuals. And we need to break that spell of this hyper individualism that really came in through the Thatcher years at an accelerated rate. And it's very hard to turn around. And, you know, nationalism, once you get involved in it, that's it, it's a life commitment. It's a life commitment. And this is not going to be done. Nobody's going to sweep to power. Nobody's going to sweep to power. And as you say, the clock is ticking, time is ticking. And, you know, we got to collectivize, come together and decide how we want to push this over some window, how far we want to push it. And all those in the center, in that tiny little space, tiny little space, the likes of Tommy Robinson, their days are numbered. They're going, their days are numbered. No,
I can no longer block this out. I can no longer, because the thing is, if you back other governments over ours, if you are calling us all conspiracy theorists and trying to deliberately shut down anyone that's talking truth, you are a detriment. If it's the case where you're saying that anti-Semitism doesn't exist, but there's all these people around you that happen to be Jewish that are shutting down everyone that say anything that they deem as so-called anti-Semitic, then that's not a good way of proving us that we're wrong. Best way of proving us we're wrong is to sit there and have a mediator or moderator and to thrash out the points historically, today, etc. And I'll put this forward: I will not be dealing anymore with plebs because I intend to learn and do stuff in the future, always within the public and legal interest to the authorities that are listening. I will never break the law if I can avoid it, and like any individual. But I intend to do stuff, and these few months have been a waste of time. And do you know what we've had out of it? We've had no big conclusions. So we either call that out and move on because well, we have. I know we have. And it's not the point is you will go ahead and do good work. Chris will, James will, so on. But so we're wasting our time. So either the main man wants to talk, or we go our separate ways.
I would say
because we will provide work. That's the difference. We will.
I'd say we made a fantastic start to 2020. A lot of white pills. Everybody was very G'd up and everything. And over recently, we've had these kind of debates going on with that guy, Busker. I mean, just a very low IQ, not worth bothering, not worth going on the street. Glenn Saffer, all low IQ. Inman, all low IQ, not worth bothering. But as we went through all this, it did lead us to something the other day when Ralph took on Ambrosine. And that was an absolute gift because it wasn't just a beating. It was a pummeling, a demolishing by Ralph on Ambrosine. Plus, it gave us the absolute evidence, the absolute truth that there is a pernicious foreign organization working to undermine a real nationalist movement. Now, you can throw labels at the likes of, some people, and they're going to stick. But once you have the evidence and once you can show it, you say, well, if you are clean of character and you have a good image and you can point this out, it is an absolute hammer shot towards their side. And you can say, okay, now we've totally proved to the civic nationalists that there is a foreign organization Mr. Robinson is in league with, that he has signed a Faustian pact with. And that was made clear and evident by Ralph the other day. We've got on video, we've got on download. That won't be going away. So, I mean, I don't see what's stopping the civic nationalists now, because you cannot be a slave to two masters. You are either for one country or you're for your own. I know which country I'm for. I know whose people I'm for, and always will be. There is, I am for nobody else but my people, my country. And this is something that we are fighting for, which is not going to take 1 year, 2 years. But I don't see those occupying. I don't see any of those who are occupying the center, like Tommy Robinson, for Britain, Sargon of Akkad. They're running out of space. Actually, I would say a patriotic alternative is occupying such a massive space over on the right, and its tentacles are everywhere, and we're pulling people in and pulling them in, and people want it. People want the ideas. People want this kind of narrative. People want this kind of speech. People don't want to be scared. They want to be able to use language, point people out, and say, these guys are working against us. These guys are working against us. This isn't right. That isn't right. Because we've had years and years of it with Labour councillors who have hidden up the most atrocious crimes right across the country, and they should be totally ashamed of themselves. They got Keir Starmer, who's just come in right now. He has pointed out who his allegiance is to straight away. He made an apology to them, but he did not make an apology to the girls who had been raped. From Rotherham, all those cases, all those young children who had suffered, did he make an apology to them? No. What did he do? He put Naz Shah on his front bench. Naz Shah. That's unbelievable. That is absolutely incredible. After what she had done, after what she had said, we can see her attitude. Labour just seems to think that it's going to rise up again. No, it is going to be stained forever as the party of the rape apologists. And that is why the Tory party are looking over to the nationalists. And that's where the main ones. And they see a party like Patriotic Alternative gathering speed, gathering massive momentum.
Is bear in mind that when it comes crunch time, they've finally got this two-tier party system. If they had four, we'd have a much better chance. What they've done is every time it comes election, they make Labour so extreme, much like with America, they'll make the other side so extreme that you think you start rooting for the Tories when it's all a con anyway. So the concerning thing for myself is that if organisations like PA did get off the ground, which I'd love to see, that they'll turn Labour so bloody extreme that the Tories will, we get trapped in this never-ending cycle.
Yeah, well,
but I will say this: I've found that becoming more nationalistic to our own groups has actually made me feel closer to everyone else. Believe it or not, whether it be the Welsh or the Scots or anyone, it hasn't pushed me away from them at all. It's like,
yeah, we're in this together.
It's made me feel more sympathy for their plight.
Yeah, I did a stream the other day saying I will stand with the English, Scottish, and the Irish. Absolutely, because it's absolutely the cause is absolutely entwined. Our history is entwined. Our blood is entwined. Everything. You know, the fate of the country. England, an ethno-nationalist country has a dominant ethnic group. In ours, it's the English, and the Welsh and the Scottish and the Irish are the smaller, assimilated groups with a distinct identity that is not of the dominant group. That is what an ethno-nationalist country is. And if you look across the world, all the successful countries across the world have the same makeup. But we have decided that we want to break that down. And that is why Western civilization and culture is absolutely plummeting. We are on the slippery slope of the liberal slope. And that's it. It's had its day. The weaknesses are being exposed. The collectives say, I don't want to be an individual. I want to be part of my collective. We're letting the collectives come in. They're very aggressive. They're coming in. They're taking power. They're taking up the resources, and they're pushing the individuals aside. Now, the liberals will say, oh, no, but it's just about individual rights. We are collectives. No, you're not collectivizing. You've been absolutely shredded, and you want more principles.
This Marxist ideal, values. Things just come out of nowhere. This Marxist ideal as if you can just muster food to the point where English people will be eating such shit. By 20 years, our processed food will be so bad, our diet will be so poor, the Tudors will have been stronger than us, even though they were dying at, 20 years earlier. They're forcing us into this idea where we've got it better than ever because we've got microwaves. And let's take a moment to highlight capitalism for people, because people don't understand why it can be seen as problematic. By the way, I'm not saying no capitalism. I'm not promoting against capitalism.
No, I know what you say. I know.
Right, I'm about to explain it. But if you choose capitalism, you're still paying, no matter who you are, whether you're a banker or a shop owner, you're using fake notes. You're still paying for the privilege for those notes to the main man. The main man runs communism. Doesn't matter who you are. There's not enough money in the world circulation to catch up with the people that own the currency. Whereas if you choose communism, then you're just speeding up the process. So you're left with this socialist ideal from Labour or Democrats or whatever, and then you've got this wonderful capitalist thing that's sold to you like it's the best thing on earth, when in fact you're always dealing in fake money anyway. Because as I always point out, when Armageddon happens, the only thing that will mean anything is gold. So when you have minions working for you, they'll just give out fake. Here, let's make DiCaprio rich. Give him some fake tokens. That's what it is. Because if nukes started going off left, right, and center, just like with Venezuela recently, you'd find that there'd be notes everywhere on the floor and no one would give a shit about them. But I promise you, gold will be just as valuable. So go and have a look and see if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Gold and diamonds, the most valuable things on earth, will always, whether it be ancient Egypt or the future, will always be the most valuable things on earth because they're the rarest. Piece of paper with $1 written on it means nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, money is only an agreement, and at the moment we're seeing the UK. We're seeing the Bank of England just absolutely printing off money like there's no tomorrow due to the coronavirus, and
wanting to ruin our economy as well.
And if you can print money off like that to keep the country afloat, why so austerity? This idea of austerity, this idea of a national debt is, it's not true, is it? It's not a real thing. If you can just print it off willy-nilly like we are now. And, I keep an eye on the exchange every day. And it fluctuates now, a bit more than it used to be. But considering it's a global epidemic, it's not fluctuating that much. But that's due to the UK and America is just absolutely printing off money. In America, they bailed out all the corporations again. I think they printed off some like $1 trillion, something crazy. Maybe more than it. Oh yeah, like even more than $1 trillion. I think they've just printed it all off. I think Wall Street was going to collapse. This was about a month. But
it's so basic, isn't it? The more you have of anything, the less it's worth. It's just basic. If I've always used the analogy, if I have one can of Coke and I was on a desert island, that would become a very valuable can of Coke very quickly.
Yeah, but
if there was tens of thousands, we'd be using them to sleep on.
Yeah, but what this is telling me, you got to consider what the state is. What is the state doing? What's the function of it? Because if you can just print out money in that, just keep everything afloat and keep it going, and nobody's working, so some people are working. So
you'll notice the times of people on Telegram. You'll notice more righties that actually work or asleep at certain hours. So the last 2 weeks I've been out of work. I've been up late, but I noticed before everyone that's up really late are another side, and everyone that's up earlier with the work ethic, even if they're not at work. I've noticed the people that are more persuaded by our side of politics are keeping themselves in check, going to bed at a decent time, getting up at a decent time, behaving like adults, not street rats at 17, skinning up zoots under a subway.
Yeah.
Whereas I find the other side is turning this into some sort of Snapchat war, like kids. It's no longer about aiding the country and debating the points. It's about our gang's better than your gang, which is just gay. Let's get to the points. Let's just get to the points. We either want to talk about the points or make memes on each other for the next 24 months.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, I've talked about this in past streams. The nature of crime over the last 10, 20 years, how extreme it's becoming. I know we've had our own. I know we've had
who was it? It was two lads on, and I only listened to the first quarter of it. I was having a shower, and it was that they were so brilliant. Two lads. One had like a bishop, as like a stained glass picture of a bishop, I think, or a painting of a bishop. A couple of days ago or yesterday.
Mm.
It was a. Let me go on your channel and I'll tell you which one it was. I absolutely thought they were great.
Oh, the other day, Libertas Metapod. Oh, on my channel.
Yes, I was
Well,
listening
we
to
were
it in the
talking.
shower.
Sorry, we were talking about what it means to be English. It was Libertas
Yeah,
Metapolitics, Horus, and Saint Harrison.
it
All
was so
good.
good.
Yeah, all good streamers. Yeah, all
I'm
very
gonna go
good.
get
All
it
very smart.
and put it in my
And
chat. Hang on.
and
Like, ladies and gents, it takes a lot really to impress any of us, but this is one of them. Oh shit, this is one of them where you listen to it, and whether you're advanced or not, you just you learn, you know. So I'm going to put this in my chat now. Wait, and at some point, you should definitely all go watch this stream. I think it's well worth your time. Sorry to cut you off.
that's all right, man. But yeah, I do like doing streams like this because, you know, it's okay talking about politics all the time, but we absolutely have to change the culture. We have to reignite the culture, bring back the traditions, bring back what we inherited, because that's part of the biospirit of the people. That's where, you know, it all comes from. And that's what's been broken down really over the years. And it's very well, it's very malicious. Absolutely, you know, it's completely and utterly malicious, and it's coordinated, organized. The long march through the institutions, we can say. And the guests that I had on the other day, the 3 guests that I had on the other day, you're right, they absolutely killed it. They were talking what they were talking about. They were putting their finger on it. And this is it. Like Libertas Metapolitics, you know, he said to describe what it is to be English, it's ineffable. It's like you can't just put it into words, but you know what it is. And when you're with the people and you're within your big groups and your crowd, the spirit is there. And it's the same. Like I had Unwashed, Nick from Unwashed on my channel one time. And he used to live in Cardiff. He lived in Cardiff 12 years. And he said I could go into a pub in Wales and I knew I was the only Englishman in there. You just know, yeah. And I've experienced that.
Well, it's even
I
more
lived in
tribal
London
than
for
that.
2 years.
If I go into a pub
you know.
up north as an Englishman, I know I'm a Londoner.
Yes, absolutely.
And even if you're
stand
Scotsman, you might not get on with the Highlanders who may speak Gaelic.
It's not getting on with them. You just know there's that little bit of a cultural difference. Like when I lived in London for 2 years, and I remember the World Cup being on.
Sorry to hear that, mate. I hope it got better after that.
I was back in 2001, actually, 2001 to about 2003, and I'd go to the pub to watch England play, and with my friends, and I could tell I was the only Welshman in there. You know, I was the, and and on a day when it's all about national identity, you never truly feel like you're fitting into the crowd, you know. And
it's true.
I walked in. I just walked in off the street one time in a pub in Sydenham one time, and I just walked in there, and I just felt like, you know it. You just know that everybody in there is like proper English lads, and you know, you just feel like it's not uncomfortable. You just know you're different. You know, you just know there's something, that spirit, that atmosphere is not there. And as Libertas Metapolitics said, he said you can't quite put your finger on it. And I know, you know, from traveling country to country, being in many different cultures, and I've been in, you know, situations with lots of people from different cultures. You know, you can feel the separation and the difference.
There's a comfort
and then
level.
when the groups build up, it's different.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's etiquette within every pub or society. I mean, whether you're a northerner or a southerner, if him and I, most of us, if we was in Spain, we'd both understand that we hold the door open for each other, we say thank you, and if we don't, it's basically like calling the other.
Yeah, you know exactly how to engage. You know exactly how to interact. And, you know, I've been out many times, with my wife and her friends, and I have a great time and everything. But, you know, I'm different. I can feel the difference. And it's not, I'm not going to have the same laughs as I would with my group of people.
Country.
You know, even if I met, let's say I met three strangers, three Welshmen who were strangers, I'm definitely going to have that bond, that interaction with them,
Yes.
you know. And then, you know, people think, oh, what does it matter? What does it matter? Everything matters. Attitude, behavior absolutely matters, especially in large groups. And we can see the manifestations from the actions of these groups, you know, coming out into like gang violence. That's
Oh,
not an
that's right.
accident.
So,
It's
sometimes it's the opposite. I went away. I won't go on too long. I went away to work on a tall ship years ago. It was amazing on a big sailing boat for like a couple of weeks. And there was a sister ship identical to ours, and every single person on the boat, apart from me, was a northerner. And when we pulled up by this other boat, I'm talking a great big, huge boat. You
mm,
know,
yeah, like a
100-foot
hotel.
sails. And we pulled up next to each other and we've all started shouting. And the only two people to actually get into a real heated argument, which got nasty, was there's 300 people on that boat, 300 people on that boat. And then slowly you hear both the boats quieten down. And the two Londoners are just going, you fuck, you. Like the whole, they could all hear that we'd stopped joking at this point with each other. It was like
Yeah.
two brothers arguing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, but I was a kid, bear in mind, and then we started like, fuck it, you know, and then it turned into about 1,000 Northerners just watching us two have a verbal over these two boats. But all the same, so sometimes you can go somewhere, they'll be like, oh, here's another Southerner, fuck's sake, I thought I'd avoided them. But I promise you this, anywhere I go in the country, right, you can get away with it. If you're from Birmingham, you can go to anywhere else. Once you're from inside the M25, everyone goes, oh no, Londoner. Whether you're in Milton Keynes, Northampton, Bristol, wherever you are, they go, oh fuck's sake, there's a Londoner in here.
Well, this is something that I taught about on a few of my streams with the English. The difference between the English and the Welsh is that the English have this confidence. Now, some people would call it an arrogance, but it's not. It's a good confidence because what England has given to the world and what the English people has given to the world. And this is what I mean. When they go around the world, they have this confidence. They can go here, they can go there, and they can see themselves in many things because of what has been exported from England. And the Welsh, we don't have that. We don't have the same confidence as the English, but it's a good thing. That spirit is a good thing. And that's what they're trying to break down. And yes, between the Londoners, between the South and up north, there's a difference. Up north, they're more working class, if you understand what I mean, where the success of the South is expressed through the confidence of the people.
Though, what Northerners forget is that there's so many people packed into the South that they have just as many poverty people. That just because it's like New York, you know, yes, it's got the height of money, but it's heavily overpopulated and has way more poor people. So quite often people think, here's the city slicker, when in fact it's far nicer to live as a poor person up north where you've got a bit of room to walk than living in a shitty little apartment somewhere near Soho, which smells, you know? So,
yeah, well, one thing I realized about one thing about London is it's not just about success. Well, no, wait there. Let me rephrase that. In London, it's not just about glamour. I should say it's not just about the glamour of London because London's a world famous city. Okay, so you say London, anywhere you go in the world, people know it's world famous. It's not just about the glamour, but you looking at the heritage in London and the refined areas, the nice areas, the architecture, everything, and the universities and all these different open, if there are still open spaces in London, very well kept, very beautiful, and they are the image of London. That is what people see when you Like Hugh Grant, Notting Hill, that is the image of London. Now, I don't know what Notting Hill is like. I've never been there. But that kind of very upmarket image, four weddings and a funeral, the country
Let me
manor
tell
house.
you, Jay, wherever you are in London, even if you are at even if you're at Buckingham Palace or you're at just walking, if you're anywhere, you are never more than 30 seconds to 15 minutes walk from a ghetto, anywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of one thing. This was back in 2001 when I lived there, and I used to work in the East Dulwich area, Forest Hill, Brockley. Very, very culturally enriched area, very tough area.
You go to Centre
Not
Point, the
not
centre of the
safe,
city.
not safe
Sorry,
at night.
no. Centre of the
Oh,
city is a building called Centre Point, which is outside Tottenham Court Road Station. You come out of there, it's very impressive building, very impressive shopping centres. Directly behind there is some council flats, which are clearly very heavily run down. So you pop to spend a few grand in the shops, you take the wrong road, you're in a council estate. That's the way
mm,
London is. It's a medieval city built on horse and carriage roads. It's not like New York.
mm,
It's not in grid
mm,
systems. It's a city that's been built on and on and on and on. And that's why you get double decker buses struggling down these piss pot little roads, because we've kept our historical significance and beauty. And you'll
mm,
find that the people that most want to piss on it are the people that don't take a moment to realize that. So, yes, it's annoying. Getting through London, it will take you longer than flying to Spain, but it's over congested. It's over congested. So, it's getting worse. And London is no longer fun for anyone. Whether you're
mm,
socializing or working, it's now the pits. And it's not the fault of the
mm.
buildings or architecture or history, it's the fault of
But
those in charge.
what I noticed about it too was the people that I met there and people that I work with. Seen a lot of people weren't from London. They came to London. They would live in a one-bedroom flat, or they're buying a one-bedroom flat, and all they did, and the only people that they knew were the people that they worked with. They had no social lives, and I met hundreds of people like this, and I thought that is bizarre. You're coming in to the city just working to pay your mortgage every month. You don't have a social life. It's not safe in your area. You don't go out. Got no stories to tell. What are you? It was very, very depressing. And there's, I don't know if you ever watched it. It's called Extras with Ricky Gervais. And there's a moment in it. There's a scene in it where his friend, I think it's her name's Ashley, and she has to move into this dingy little room because she got no money because she can't get any work. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, I've seen so many places in London like that.
Do you know
And
what
there are
makes
so
London
many people living in places like that. It's really sad.
I, I don't mean physically tough. What makes them tough? Northerners have a toughness with extreme conditions, etc. But what makes Londoners tough is the fact that you are living in a rat race, and quite often it's just a depressing place to live. Not because it's not a beautiful place, because there's no way with that much congestion and cultures and shit in one place that you can keep it clean and nice and affordable. Most people live under their means. No one
Mm,
in London, well, obviously there are, but the majority of people are not comfortable at all.
mm.
They've not got
Yeah,
expendable income. They can't get what they want. And if they take their money up north, they're suddenly loaded. Now, what they've done
yeah.
is it's no different than America or anywhere else. If there was no specific people doing specific things, there would be no inflation on the banknote. There would be no £1 million um, you wouldn't be paying £1 million for a house. You wouldn't, because
Mm,
we'd have room. But our culture would be most important thing. And if you're looking at nationalistic interest, first of all, overcrowding. It's not. It's but basically there is no argument for the other side, right? We are acting within our national interest when it comes to keeping English or Welsh or whoever people actually not just white, but Welsh or English. There's a distinct difference, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are turning on us, thinking we're saying, well, my dad or my mum or something. It doesn't make them unimportant. It doesn't make them non-human. We're just defining who's who. That's all.
Yeah, well, as a British person, we know who the British people are. I mean, it's quite a ridiculous thing when people say, "Oh, what's it mean to be British?" It's all deconstructionism, it's all postmodernist crap. We know exactly who the British people are, and even if you're only part British, you should want the British people to exist and survive. You should want it to carry on. You know, even if you're part of an ethnic minority in the country. I mean, it's for your greater good as well as the dominant ethnic group as well. I mean, you know, so this is what I mean. People talk about patriotic alternative, calling it this, that, and you know, Mark Collett has quite openly said ethnic minorities, they're absolutely welcome into the party. They're welcome to come to the conference, but they must understand our policies. And this is what I mean when we talk about like this is something, you know, the PA gets criticized for. They talk about Mark, about this, that, and the other. You have to separate the man from the ideas, the man from the manifesto. Okay, Mark's ideals and his ideas are separate. Okay, now this is very common with every politician. Not, you know, a politician doesn't join the Labour Party or the Conservative Party and say, these are my ideals, I want all these to be in the manifesto. Okay, that's not going to happen because it's about winning. It's about winning the election and appealing. But what you got to do is get the people to agree with your manifesto. And this is what I mean about, you know, we got all these people who are part of the movement and, you know, they're not representatives of the movement. The only two representatives of the movement is Mag and Laura, and that's it, right? Everybody else is supporting. Everybody else is trying to do their bit, and that's all great and everything. So all this criticism that, you know, that we may, not me, but PA may receive is slightly unfair in many ways, well, and sometimes very, very unfair, because this is something I've been trying to explain to people that I've had to talk with, you know, people who support PA. It is the intellectual people, the smart people are moving towards PA and moving towards patriotic alternative because they look at Laura, they look at Mark, and they separate Mark from things, and they don't look at them. They're not looking at the person, they're looking at the policies. And that's what's more important. If we're going to save our country and our people, we're going to save a future for our children, it is the policies that matter. And I don't really care who writes those policies. I don't care who writes the manifesto. If it is aligned with what I want for the future of my country, that is it. That is absolutely it. And that's why I put my, I haven't seen the manifesto yet. It will come out. And I'm absolutely sure this is going to be aligned with what everybody on the right side of politics wants. That includes the civic nationalists. That includes them. They will all look at, I am very sure, I haven't seen, but I'm very sure they will look at that manifesto and they won't find anything wrong with it. And they'll say, that's absolutely what I want. So all these pretenders that are in the middle, sitting on the fence, they got nothing, you know. So I do think that this momentum is going to carry on. And, you know, anybody, as I say, all the intellectual people, all the smart people can separate the ideals from the ideas, the man from the manifesto, and go, wow, this is really great. Yes, I'm on board. Ben?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at a couple of inboxes. The usual babbles going on. So I'll refer back to the statement I made at the beginning of this. Over the babble, I'm
Sorry.
seeing. Can you
I
hear me?
digressed. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just referring to. I'm going to go to the subject I brought this up for this video, which is to say, whatever hatred or ridiculous babble that I see since after this, unless you are the main man willing to talk about your views, all you are is the
Mm,
far left. That's it. From this point, you will be treated as Antifa. If you are
mm,
those people involved in calling Vinny anti-Semitic, then it's within our interest to treat you the same. Because if you want to go and make projects, then good on you. But all I'm saying is you try and stop people do their work. Therefore, you should become a feature. You should be
mm,
exposed no different than Antifa would for exactly what you're doing. So, ladies
mm,
and gents, I must say that we've got a huge campaign ahead of us. I've released about 20 memes in the last 2 days, named "Loving Your Own is not the same as hating someone else." I'm going to be really busy going into the future looking for great ways to unite us. I have no time from
mm.
this point forward for any negativity unless you want an actual debate, and that will only last for a few weeks. Don't waste my time. I'm not here to have a back and forth or play any more meme games. Stop hiding behind the shadows and go and get the main man. Mark's waiting,
Mm.
Ralph's waiting, James is waiting. I'll talk if that's what you want. But even now, there's people talking about my past. Even now, there's people
Well,
trying to discredit. And I promise you this: if you stand on a stage with 30,000 on the street and call Vinny a tosser, it will increase my power levels. And I do not give a shit if 10 million people turn on me. I will go to my grave remembered as a patriot, sir. You will go as a shill.
mm. And absolutely right. I think these so-called leaders, instead of riding around in a bus or chasing, the shekels, whatever. And let me tell you, we've got unmitigated evidence. I mean, as I said, Ralph's debate with Ambrosine was a gift. It was everything that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
Ambrosine's connection, Tommy Robinson, and the foreign organization. You have to decide which country are you for. If you say you're a nationalist, you're gonna have to decide who are you for? For your people? I mean, it's so normal, it's so natural. And let me tell you something else. The people around the world, the governments around the world, from different countries, the people, the population, they want England to win. They want Britain to win. They want us to regain our place in the world. They want us to be strong. And that is absolutely unequivocal in my experience. Britain has always been looked upon as better by other countries ever since I can remember. Through my experiences of traveling, it's always had a very high status, and we've always given great things to the world. We've always been central to generating the world economy and exporting our culture and our traditions, our identity, everything. And people want us to win. So if we have to take measures, illiberal measures, to regain the country and restore the country to back how it was, we will have the absolute support of other people because they would do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Make no
So
doubt.
I'm just going to address one person in the chat so people understand. You help docs and evidence of blah, 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 patriots and Tifa, not to mention you hate Tommy, Kilometer Code Blue, etc. I do not
No one hates
care.
Tommy.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I don't care about old voice notes that were cut up of me saying I don't care about kids getting raped. I don't give a shit. I'll share it for you. I don't give a shit about cut up things I've said about Inman or anyone else. I don't give a shit about fabricated articles about me, ex-partners, etc. I expect them to go on Sky News one day. So if you rats that are hiding your face can't even put your face on the internet and expect me to become bothered by this, I give you permission to worship me going into the near future. And if you don't, I'll be asking you why not. So make sure you make lots of videos, and I am giving you straight up commands to make as many voice clip videos on me as you can, because trust me, I get off on it. Thank you.
Well,
So I'm going to wrap up shortly anyway, if you've got any final statements.
I just like, you know, if you know you've come here to call Tommy out, which is a good thing, and Tommy can't like just run away from it. See, either if he does run away with it, you know, what we're asking is have a civil debate on anybody's channel, right? And and a civil debate, you know, clear the air, try and do some good for the sake of everyone, and you know, you got to start pulling people together. As far as like, otherwise, just retire and get the fuck out the way. It's that easy, because you're stopping people moving to real nationalism, and it's the only nationalism that's going to save the country. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's been an interesting stream, ladies and gents. Going into the future, the stress levels that are caused by arguing with people that are just sort of Onslow, Carling, you know, pointless entities, it's getting out of hand. Because I tell you what, there were thousands of lads that used to be on their marches that you might call yobs, but they weren't. Wonderful men, really good blokes, the sort of men I grew up with, working beside on removals vans and stuff like that. People like the DFLA, the old FLA, you know, they weren't all wallies at all. They were actually very noble people that were out there because they're bothered by the country. It doesn't mean that they weren't misled, because I was. And I don't dislike anyone. What I dislike is what's happening to my green and pleasant lands. Euro's joining us. I'll have to stay for an extra 15 minutes. Welcome, Euro.
Hello. Yeah. How's it all going?
Good to have
How's it
you.
going?
I take it you were just about to end the stream before I showed up.
Yeah, but I'll happily sit on for another quarter of an hour. I would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of these people, there are a lot coming over at the moment. And when you talk about those organisations, like you know, there used to be a lot of people in things like the EDL who've already come over, and you just don't realise how many there are. You know, those people didn't all disappear, but there's a lot of them who got out of that movement because they saw exactly the same problems that all of us have now, much later on. You know, because they saw them up close. And you know, all you really get left in a lot of these things are you know, the diehards, the people who are never going to change their mind unless like it's absolutely overwhelming in their face evidence. It's a personality cult, like with Tommy, for example. But then you know, we do get people who claim to be on our side, and like we always attack civnats for their ideas. You know, we very rarely go after them just because, you know, the way they operate. But these people, a lot of the times, they'll come out against us, and they'll, you know, they'll resort to the same sort of name calling tactics.
The exact same
as the far left.
Yeah, the exact same. Yeah.
But even there are some people who claim to be sort of red pilled and on our side, and they're not civic nationalists. But you know, there's a few detractors of TASOB who've I know for example that one of them listens to every show we do, like because he's wrote this on Telegram in one of their own groups that he's listening to every show that we do just to disagree with us. It's like what is your problem? And they've got this idea that, you know, because of things that happened during World War II, you know, we can never take our own, we can never like go against Churchill. Like Churchill, we've got to have him as our mascot and he did nothing wrong. And you say, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have firebombed Dresden. That was a bit bad. What are you, a Nazi, bro? It's like, well, you know, by that but that's the other thing as well. A lot of these people, they attack us as Nazis. It's like, yeah, but when you say the word and then you say, I'm not a Nazi, I just have these opinions, and like that sounds like a Nazi to me. It's like, yes, well, literally no one's a Nazi, because people's idea of what a Nazi is, what you have in your head, is put in your head by media, which is owned by certain people. You know, it's not real.
Carry on. It's a piss, but I can still hear you. Carry on.
Yeah. So people have this idea in their heads, like this Hollywood idea of what a Nazi is, of what a skinhead is, And so when they say to us, "Oh, you're Nazis," it's like, well, no, I'm not. I'm nothing like that. You are a Nazi. You call yourself a National Socialist. It's like, okay, well, I agree with some things in that book. So you're a Nazi. Well, not in the way that you think I am. It's never that simple. Like, no one is actually a Nazi. Like, very few people. And then you get these people who say, "You're worse than Hitler." It's like, well, yeah, he achieved a lot more. So, like, in that sense, probably I am worse than him. I haven't done quite so much. I know that was maybe a bit edgy.
This was something I discussed the other day with Nick Laurie and Horace, when people say, "Oh, you want to return it to 1930s Germany?" Well, actually, 1930s Germany was a great success, to a point where Hitler was invited over to England. We have film evidence of the Queen giving a Nazi salute. But he was praised by JFK. But I mean, this idea of, we want to turn everything back to 1930s Germany.
Well, not just 1930s Germany, but can we turn?
It's not even a criticism, really, is it?
Yeah, it's just like, wow, just wow.
And let's be fair, no matter what anybody thinks, Adolf Hitler turned the country around and saved them from the Weimar Republic. So
it's
this idea.
Really?
The thing is, when we're looking at our country now, and there's so much disorder, so much violence, so much nihilism, so much degradation and fucking denigration of our identity, people are looking for order and unity. And when they look at that 1930 and success, people do look at it and go, "Fucking hell, we need a bit of that." We're not saying, people are not saying, "Come on, let's fucking fire up."
It's not that I want to turn this country to 1930s Germany.
Ridiculous.
It's not that I want to turn this country to 1930s Germany. I just, if I could go back to 1930s England, that would be pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Before we had rampant transgenderism, before we had, Pakistani rape gangs, which are covered up by the police and the media, before we had all these things, life was pretty good back then.
Big time. I put out a poll the other day, which was a landslide. It said, would you go back to a time without phones or affordable cars if it meant that because it was the argument when I was arguing Van Rosine, would you go back to the 1930s if we all had a safe place to live, plenty of room for our family? And everyone said yes. It's like an 80% win, straight up.
I mean, we also had reasonable gun rights back then. I mean, those were only stolen from us very recently. And,
after Michael Ryan.
if you don't have the right to own weapons to defend yourself, you're a slave, because your master can choose whether to defend you or not. And that's what we do see. The police don't defend young white girls who are raped by men of Pakistani background and Muslim faith. They choose not to defend you. And if they're just going to let you be attacked like that, you are their slave.
Also, when we're attacked one day by an army, we've got two things. We've got an LGBT community that won't know what to do, and we've got a foreign army that will not pick up a rifle even if you conscripted them legally. The average Muslim base, etc., is not going to don a rifle for Great Britain.
People will fight for what they believe in or for what they're paid to fight for. And like if you want a mercenary army, you need to pay them pretty well. You always pay them a lot more than you pay people who are motivated by their love of country. And if we do have, as the Ministry of Defense has been doing for years, trying to get as many like Muslims and gays in the military, it's you're right. What's going to happen? Well, I don't think gays make effective soldiers. They destroy morale for a start, because that really does cause a lot of issues we don't have to go into. But and then all the Muslims are going to depending on what sort of war it is, all the Muslims, they're not going to fight unless the plan is to use the British army once it's full of Muslims against the native people. I mean, I'm not one for wars and adventurism in the Middle East, but as soon as we had this thing a few years ago where they're trying to bomb Syria, and France was going to get involved. So they sent an aircraft carrier, and all the Muslims in the army and navy on board this aircraft carrier revolted. They said, we're not going to let you attack our Islamic brothers in that other country because we identify more with them than we do with France. So we have that example in modern times.
Yeah, and you've only got to look at the police force. You've only got to look at the police force now. You know, you look at the state of the Met. I had a conversation one time. My friend was in the Met for 14 years. He was telling me about his training when it started to become diverse and all multicultural. They had to go to classes to learn how to deal with different multicultural people from other cultures. But those of other cultures that were in the police force, they didn't have to learn or go to a class how to deal with the native people. So everything is always aimed in one direction.
These institutions are so anti-white now, especially like
yes.
We talked about on the latest TASOB, and it was a very risque episode. I wouldn't necessarily share that with all your friends, but if you want to find it, it's on Spreaker, The Absolute State of Britain, and we talked about Stephen Lawrence. Stephen Lawrence was killed. It was blamed on a couple of white lads, and these white lads were not very well liked, and they may have in fact been terrible people. But as far as some of the info we've seen suggests it might not have actually been them. It might have been just some sort of drug selling war, and he got stabbed by a member of his own community, very likely. But it was picked up as a cause and used to demonize whites in general for being racist, and also to start an agenda in the police where we just can't hold non-white criminals accountable.
It was also a massive contribution towards the Perec report as well, which was the Vision for Britain, which was written by Lord Bhikkhu Perec, whose vision for Britain was that Britain must be multiculturalized because after the Lawrence report, the Macpherson report, it was deemed that the white working class were all racist. So the only way to cure the racism was to become a multicultural country. And this was a report that was funded by the Runnymede Foundation.
The Runnymede Trust, yeah, which is one of these organizations which is, it's got this very nice name that conjures up images of, the Magna Carta and British patriotism, but it's actually run by subversive enemies of ours who have a completely antithetical agenda to the native people.
And we know who they are.
Yes.
But
you said the word racist. Racist is one of these words like Nazi, where it has such a broad range of meaning. And what our enemies will always do is they'll get you on like the smallest definition, and then they'll use that to tar you with the brush of the biggest definition. So, if you say like racist, well, that can mean anyone who just like accepts that there are racial differences, because like most people do. It's the reason why, why is Usain Bolt the fastest runner in the world? Well, it's partially because of his genetics. Like black people in general, they do make better runners. Some of them make better sprint runners, and some of them make better endurance runners. But saying that is obviously true. That makes you a racist. But there's this other definition of race: exterminate everyone who's not of your race. Most people, most quote unquote racist people, really aren't like that. So the moment they get you on the small definition and say you accept racial differences, no, it's not quite how it works. But it's just another little rhetorical trick they use.
Yeah, well, the term racist when I was growing up meant you hated somebody because of their race, and that was it.
But it means you hate somebody who's not white because of their race.
Yeah, well, if you want to be specific, but
but that was it when. That was it when I was growing. That was it when I was growing up. When I was just a young kid, that was the actual definition dictionary. Now I'm 44 years old, so You know, the changes of the definition over the years, it's just ridiculous because, you know, until all this like anti-white hatred kicked off, you know, I wasn't paying attention to it all.
Because I
I
heard an
wasn't
argument.
paying attention to it all. Then wait there. Then this new definition come out, and I was like, people don't really think this way, do they? They don't really think that is a real thing.
Well, it's about
apparently
getting.
they do.
It's about it never starts off that way. What our enemies do is they're very fond on gaslighting. So they want to trick enough people into believing that that is the new normal, and then once people go along with that being the new normal, it does become normal over time. They normalize things by pretending they're already normal, using their vast institutional power in the media and other organizations, and, you know, like literally cracking down on anyone who disagrees with social shaming in the media, with you know, economic problems by getting rid of their jobs, you know, like getting people fired. So they've like, most people don't think this way, but once they've set up this false framework, this false Overton window, they can keep pushing that and pushing that, you know. And regardless of what people actually, there's a huge difference between what people actually think and what people think you're allowed to think.
I'm just going to put in the chat now the definition. Oh no, it's too long. I have to read it. The definition of supremacist. Because, am I audible? Have I unmuted myself?
Yeah, we can.
No, you're going.
Oh, right, wonderful, yeah. Okay, so because I heard Mad Fraz and Ralph accused of being white supremacists, right? So Google has played a funny game. Yeah, they played a funny game here, which is an advocate for the supremacy of a particular group, especially one determined by race or sex. Also relating to or advocating the supremacy of a particular group, which is basically the same thing again. Now, that basically says you're not allowed to. Supremacy is a non-existent word to say you can't defend your own. That's one. Also, supremacy would say that we want to do something worldwide, when in fact it's nationalistic. It's within our state. That's why the ethno-state is involved. So to call us supremacists would say that we want worldwide, some sort of
well, no, but all supreme really means is that somebody is on top or somebody is in charge. You know, if you are the supreme ruler of the country, you're the king or what have you. You know, British people should be supreme in Britain, and Nigerians should be supreme in Nigeria, and Japanese should be supreme in Japan. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the natural way of being.
Japanese are supreme in Japan. They said, I wish we was.
And that's it. That's what the
so I am a white supremacist for white countries, which is to say Europe and America and Canada and Australia, these are white countries and they should be white supremacists, and Africa should be black supremacist, you know.
And they absolutely are.
The word is confused as well because it's conflated with some sort of violence or hatred. The world itself is very clever. And only yesterday I released I'm sure you've all seen it loads of times. You know the video of the 1950s Communist Manifesto that they put out to their members in America? And it basically says, call your enemies anti-Semitic, racist, and homophobic, no matter what, and eventually it'll stick. Now, it says in that video, in that text, that it doesn't matter, we're lying, basically. And it's always been the way. And I'm seeing that now on so-called patriots. So I'll repeat again. The idea was to call people anti-Semitic, quote, I could go and play you this if you really want, anti-Semitic, homophobic, and racist. And the quote was, if you call them this enough, people will eventually believe it and they'll be discredited. Does that sound like anyone that we're dealing with today?
Well,
that's the Communist Manifesto, by the way.
Our enemies are absolutely supremacists. You know, they're Zionist, they're anti-white Zionist supremacists.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Hugh on the offensive the other day, and anything traditional is now has an ist or an ism attached to it. Like if you want to like get married and be in a, you know, have children, that's kind of anti-gay now. You know, if you don't think that homosexuality is like the primary lifestyle to have, you're like homophobic. If you don't think giving your kids tablets to make the change, you're now transphobic. And if you do not wish to keep your country ethnically homogenous, now you're a racist. Anything that's traditionally and especially if it's ethnocentric, there is an ist or an ism being made for it, and
it's not about traditional. It's just normal. Like our enemies attack and they say like
is to us.
Well, the things that are traditional are normal because they've been that way for a while. That's right. Why they're traditional.
That's right. Yes.
Our enemies have this obsession with progress. Everything's about progress, and it's like people have a conception of progress is always like forward in one direction. And if you want to talk about something like technological progress or our understanding of the world, like you can only really go forwards. But in all other cases, you always progress towards something. And it really depends on your point of view, because if you're progressing towards one thing, you're regressing away from something else. So like, well, as much as our enemies talk about progress, it's like, well, you're actually going backwards from my point of view. You're actually getting worse. This is not progress in the sense of getting better. It's progress towards a worse society.
Would you boys agree with me that if we had a good standard of living, it would take us within a decade to fix the whole third world? But as it is, they're deliberately put into poverty. They're deliberately run down in order so that we say, thank you, master, for lucky capitalism. Do you not feel that the fact is, if you really broke down how easily we could fix the world, it's quite obvious something suspicious is going on here.
I don't think it's quite so simple as that. I think definitely there are things going on in our own system, which could be fixed, and our own quality of life could be much better, especially if we weren't, having to spend all this money on treating people from overseas who come here and use the NHS and take benefits. Our own standard of life, of living would be much higher. There is some degree of that in the third world, but essentially these places lack human capital, which is to say they don't have the people with the skills to improve their own lives. There's only so much sort of what you're talking about there is this white man's burden. It's like, if we were able to, make things better for ourselves, then, we can go and help the rest of the world. And I'm not against that.
I'm not making excuses, but in many nations, there is a deliberate... we'd rather give them a fish than teach them a fish and bring them here. And there are factions that are putting that into play to forever keep that country low. Not that I'm in any hurry to help anyone else outside of us, but the fact is the third world is being damaged by this plan, not helped.
The whole world would be better off if white countries were run for the benefit of white people. Because whites are naturally altruistic,
Yes. Absolutely.
Like, one of the biggest problems that we have with exploding populations is due to the overabundance of food, which is only made possible by improvements in agriculture, which white people invented. And we invented these improvements in agriculture, but we said, we're not going to keep breeding and double our population because it's going to reduce our own comfort in our own lives and make our own lives worse. But, we gave these improvements to the rest of the world and they've just kept having children. Like at some point, these people need to take responsibility for themselves, Yeah,
the other day, Sargon, he was having a go at the Chinese the other day because they were deporting people. And I've heard him talk about Asian people in the past, about when there were black teachers over here and they're complaining they can't get a date and everything. The fact of the matter is that people, the fact of the matter is that people are ethnocentric over here. And what they did in China, and they did in Vietnam too, they got the foreigners and they deported them. They went, we don't want to take a risk with you. We cannot trust you to behave. We cannot trust you to fall into line. You are now gone. China has been around for 5,000 years. I wonder why.
If we had to... If we had to deport every Pakistani in the UK to get rid of these rape gangs, I'm okay with that. Like, I know some of them are probably very nice people, but on the whole, it's a major issue. And I don't care if some of those nice people have to go so we can get rid of the bad ones as well.
It's not what they do. They're not going to a strange country.
These
You know,
people just need to return home. Like as
they-
much as like people who have born here, who have been born here, that doesn't make this their home. You know, it doesn't make them one of us. If you're born in a stable, it doesn't make you a horse.
Agreed.
I don't know. I've seen some funny looking people in the movement. I won't go into detail, but you know, no matter how much we sound like we're angry with others, in fact, the most frustrating thing is seeing our own diminish and deplete, and that's what this is all about.
You don't
So
get angry.
It's coming up against our own as well. That really annoys me. We were talking about this earlier, Vinny. You know, if Tommy Robinson's going to do nothing, just get out the fucking way and allow people to arrive at real nationalism so we can untangle this web, because the longer it goes on, the more tangled it's going to be. And then eventually, when we have to take illiberal measures to correct this mistake and you have to rip off the plasters, you're going to have to see how much you want it to hurt. Are we going to continue down this path of destruction?
Anne-Marie Waters made a video like a week or 2 weeks ago now, and she was slagging on, and she was saying, you know, how she didn't want to deport these nice non-whites that she knew, and that, you know, racism was never going to get you anywhere. And then she basically said, like, you know, people who are already here, we can't get rid of them. So what is the point? What is the point of your party? The point of like For Britain under Anne-Marie Waters is we want to stop bringing in more Pakistanis and other non-whites who cause problems, but we don't want to deport the ones who are already here. That would be mean, and we can't be mean. So we're still going to lose. We're just going to lose really slowly. Like telling us that if we, by some, you know, magic decree, put you all into power tomorrow, you would do absolutely nothing. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. What's the point? This groups like For Britain only exist like to hoover up positive energy, which could be going to more productive endeavors.
And I think we're going to see a few more pop up here and there. Like, look at Hearts of Oaks just popped up now.
Yeah, but unless, I mean, look, we've got characters like Sargon. I have made enough big statements this stream, but there's lots of big names out there that have a lot to say about some of our belief systems. You have large audiences, which makes it damaging. I'm personally willing to ignore that. I've already made the sacrifice that people are going to think much less of me in the majority than the few that know what I'm really like, you know, what I'm really like. But as I said before, there are loads of people doing things. Some are stronger than others. Some are pretty extreme with their language. Some aren't. But whoever they are, they're coming out of the woodwork, and their confidence needs to be built, whether it's on stream, whether it's in person or whatever. And people's organisations need to get off the ground, whether it's TASOB, Jakes or whoever. If there's going to be arguments to be had, it should just be had out among the leaders. If that's not going to happen, then let's leave each other alone. Because I promise you, TASOB, Jakes, myself, Evers, will go and do projects and things that are worth listening to.
That's what Sorry, I'll tell you what. My friend made a very good video the other day, and he goes by the name Faust, and I'll link you the video in the chat there. But his video was about like English liberalism has always been quote unquote racist. It you know, for as much as Sargon likes to call anyone with any, you know, racial understanding a German, English liberalism has always been more racist than Germanic thought. You know? So I'm not
sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, but because it's a claim that's always used against us, that if you're racist, you're not liberal enough. You know, the liberals of the past, they were quote unquote racists. You know, and whether you agree with you know, it sounds like someone's got corona. I don't know if you can hear that ambulance going past in the background there.
It's probably someone walking their dog.
Yeah, somebody walking their dog, not keeping 2 meters apart from the dog on the leash.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
Feels
Have we
like
got a
it sometimes.
curfew
Yeah.
here?
Nearly. I mean, it really is starting to
Well-
feel that way. But we've all been inside
Well,
for
if-
so long that we're talking to the walls.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to when John Locke wrote his literature, you know, he was under the illusion that the tabula rasa actually existed. So everything, all his work stemmed from that. You know, he was in that mindset, and because he must have been looking at a homogenous society, so we can see where the cracks are beginning to show now. I mean, especially in the last 50 years. You know, because realistically, until 1948, Great Britain was an ethno-nationalist country.
I disagree with this term, ethno-nationalist, because nationalism is for a people.
nationalism.
Like there's no other type of nationalism. You can't
Yeah,
be
that's right.
a
Yeah,
non-ethnic nationalist because, like,
I've said
a
this
nation,
before, yeah.
a nation comes from natio, which is the same root word as birth. You know, you are born of the same wombs. You are born of the same people. You can't have a non-ethnic nationalism. That's what nationalism is. Anything else, it needs a different word.
If
Like,
anything,
civic
it
nationalism is an
feeds the narrative,
oxymoron.
doesn't it? By giving that word ethnic in front of it, if anything, it almost feeds the left's narrative they need with that language manipulation
Yes.
they need so badly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I've said this before.
You can technically call yourself a patriot and not be, you know, quote unquote racist, but in that sense, because patriot is about the country, and in the past, a country would have been a nation state, which is to say the purpose of the country was to benefit the people. So the terms were interchangeable. Now they are perhaps not interchangeable. There is a difference there, but like you have to have racial understanding and, you know, notice those differences to be a nationalist.
Yeah, I've said this in the past in some of my streams. You know, we've kind of had the word hijacked nationalism, and we should stop saying ethno-nationalism just because it's just nationalism. You know, as you just described there, and it's them who's added civic nationalism, which is just an idea. So, you know, it's every country that's ever been created is defined upon its people. And now all of a sudden
let's not
we
be
have
too
this.
harsh at the same time, because you know there's a lot of people out there that people such as yourself, Euro, and nativists. You know, they are so engulfed in information. Sometimes they can forget just how far some people are from understanding. They can forget just how blue pill the general public are. So some of them need a term like that to understand. You know, not everyone is going to catch up at the same speed, unfortunately. And
I understand why the term exists. I'm just saying it's wrong, and it is used as a direct attack on us. So I feel the need to push back against it.
I think you just said adding the word ethno makes it harder, and it gives them something to aim at.
It gives
because it has always been that way. Because it has always been that way. Because nationalism has always been ethno-nationalism, but the term ethno-nationalism is new. So by using this new term, ethno-nationalism, people are like, this is a new thing. It's a weird concept. It's never existed before. When actually, nationalism, we've had nationalism for hundreds of thousands of years, essentially. You know, we may not have had that particular term in the English language, but there have been distinct peoples and there have been states based around those people, you know, going back throughout all of history. Nationalism is not some new and weird thing. That's just how it's always been. It's the natural state of the world.
Yes. Yeah, I've made videos. I don't know if you see my channel, but I've made videos from begin to the end explaining all this. And if you look at the if you look at the components of an ethnicity, when you look at the media, culture, the social sphere, it's being attacked. Every component of the ethnic identity of the British people or the English people or the Welsh or across Western Europe, every component's being attacked, from heritage to the gene pool. I mean, even the gene pool, you got people like David Lammy saying, "Oh yeah, I'm like British, I'm English," or you cannot change
David Lammy
your
is an African married
ethnicity.
to a Jewish woman. He is not English. He is very anti-English. He is anti-white. He
Absolutely.
does not speak for us. He is in direct conflict with our group, with our nation.
It's got fucking mental problems. I mean, Ralph pointed this out the other day, is an identity thief. And this is something I pointed out before.
Yeah, he should be done for fraud.
Everybody wants to be British because, when you, like, not so much now these days, but England, it's when you got the Premiership, the national team sport, all that, movies, etc. The exports of its image is very, very glamorous, and people, wherever you go in the world, especially advertising, sport and everything, movies, you see it. It's there. It's just everywhere. So people, when you say, "Oh, Britain or England," people just think, "Oh, like streets are paved with gold, Buckingham Palace, the Queen," and it's a great identity. And
People have a very good image.
If you've got a choice between a British identity and where's he from, Lammy? Guyana or somewhere he's from, where's he from?
I couldn't.
He's from the Caribbean. He's from the Caribbean. If you got a choice between that identity, which historically is unheard of, and the British identity, you're gonna go for the British one because it's much more glamorous. But it just can't happen.
If David Lammy is British, he needs to apologize for slavery.
Yeah.
Like, and people will, if you say that to somebody, they're like, he's black, so, he can't do that. I was like, so you're a racist now. If either he's British or he's not. If he's going to be able to accept the benefits and the prestige of the history of, I mean, leaving aside that Britain was like responsible for destroying slavery internationally, pretty much almost single-handedly. But if you want to claim the prestige and the good aspects of our culture and say that you're one of us, you can't just shrug off the things that you don't like and say, well, I'm not part of that. You need to be in one camp or the other. You can't straddle, and it's not even the case. Like I get that in the case of mixed race people, they are in a difficult situation. They don't really have any identity, because they don't belong fully in one camp or the other. But somebody like David Lammy, he's entirely black. He can't claim to be British and then to shrug off the bits of Britishness that he doesn't like.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is something I've addressed in my past videos. You can't, when you're a British person, your identity, you got to take it all. It's all, you take the good and the bad. You take the rough and the smooth. You take absolutely everything. And when people point their finger at you and they say this and that about your country, you say, yeah, so what? David Lammy, don't go, oh, that wasn't me. That was people a couple of 100 years ago. Well, you can't have your fucking cake and eat it, mate.
Well, the very point that he's ridiculous. Even the MP for Tottenham, I think, highlights the situation here, because he speaks against our national interest. If you can imagine 100 years ago, someone being in office saying what he's saying, there was obviously people against our national interest, but it would be harder to get away with it in comparison with what we hear today, which is basically all out anti-white hatred. But it's been a couple of hours, so I'm going to call it a day now. And lads, I'll leave you two to make a closing statement each, though. Before I go, I'm going to drop my chat in the comments box and remind everyone that the call outs I've made today are not to cause resentment or hatred. They're to end all that. Either go and make your own projects, or let's actually confront this head on. And Mark has made the offer. I mean, he's got a massive viewership if mine isn't good enough. It doesn't need to be avoided. Everyone else, the only advice I'd give, not that you need to listen to me, is stop entertaining the ridiculous, long-winded trolls that are just giving people death threats and babble. It's not in your interest. We're all capable of far more than this. So unless the leaders want to debate, then let's move on. Anyway, lads, you each have a closing statement. Do you want to start, Jakes?
Yeah, David Lammy's not English.
Let it be memes
Iffy.
immediately. Quote. Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Never.
And
It
you
will
know,
never be English.
the favorite one to ask to Sargon is Lawrence Fishburne white. You know, David Lammy isn't English. Lawrence Fishburne isn't white. And we do have somebody in the
Absolutely.
chat there who's just asking, how do we know who the speakers are with Vin? So I am Euro. I have a podcast called The Absolute State of Britain. Some of the episodes are on YouTube, but especially not the latest one. So you'll have to find us at therightstuff.biz. That's the best place to look for us.
Okay, who am I?
Very
Don't worry
based
about
red
who I
pill
am.
information.
Don't worry about who I am. My face will be getting shown on the screen in the future once I have the right tech set up. And I can assure you, you won't be happy about it. I do have a face for radio.
That's all right. We forgive you in advance. You've already we already all like you so much. So on that note, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, loving your own isn't the same as hating someone else. Everyone else from DFLA to
Yeah.
TR team, you're not our enemy at all. In fact, we're a depleting population. And when we go to places like, I don't know, Hastings or beautiful villages, we all want to enjoy that. And we all want to have a laugh with each other. I don't hate you. If you decide to hate me, then, you know, I will get over it. But there's far more that we could do together. So if you only have an evil intention, then that will be displayed in the work you produce. Anyway, on that note, please everyone think for yourself, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Take
See
it
you
easy.
guys.
Cheers, man.
See you, Kyle.
Good night, lads.